Breaking news! A bombshell has exploded behind the scenes at the Miami Dolphins, and what seemed like just another ordinary preseason day has become a source of controversy among fans and pundits. A new depth chart has been released. It's full of unexpected twists, out-of-position players, signs of a drastic change in the defensive scheme, and decisions that put even more pressure on an already highly contested front office. The scenario seems clear: either this time will explode on the field, or it will implode behind the scenes. Mike McDaniel is trying to build a roster capable of competing for the Super Bowl, but with Chris Greer still in charge, yes, that's him, who already deflected being fired long ago, everything becomes more complicated. I'll tell you everything I've discovered about what's going on behind these suspicious moves, but before I do, I confirm that you've already hit the like button if you've been a Miami Dolphins fan for over 20 years. It's great to see fans of all ages. If possible, comment like this: "Go Dolphins! My heart bleeds aqua and orange." Now, let's get into it, because this new depth chart, it's raising some serious eyebrows. First things first, the wide receiver situation is exactly what you'd expect at the top. Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle lead the charge. That's our dream duo, and no surprises there. But look deeper and you'll see some things that make you pause. Malik Washington and Westbrook immediately back them up, which feels right considering their solid training camp performance. But Eric Ezukama sitting ahead of Taj Washington? That's unexpected. From what we've been hearing out of camp, Taj has been electric. So why the snub? Theo Wees Jr. also has been turning heads, yet he finds himself buried lower than expected. Maybe it's politics. Maybe it's Greer trying to justify his draft picks. Either way, it's not sitting right. Moving on to the offensive line, no real surprises here. The starters are Patrick Paul, Jonah Williams, Aaron Brewer, James Daniels, and Austin Jackson. It aligns with what we anticipated after drafting Jonah. James Daniels playing right guard was always likely since that's Tua's blind side. The backups, Kean Smith, Liam Eichenberg, and Daniel Brunskill hold down the depth. And shout out to Mattos for still being on the depth chart. Didn't see that one coming. But here's the thing, while the O-line looks settled, does anyone really feel confident with these names protecting Tua for 17 games? Speaking of Tua, he's still QB1, flanked by Zach Wilson and Quinn Ewers. That's a whole other conversation. Because if things go south, and I mean really south, there's already speculation about trading Tua. The idea isn't fantasy, it's math. Trade Tua and cut Tyreek? Boom! Suddenly the Dolphins free up nearly $40 million in cap space. That's the kind of nuclear option that screams new GM incoming, and if that happens, it's the end of the Greer era. Finally, now let's talk defense. Oh boy, this is where things get weird. We're seeing what looks like a 4-3 scheme on the depth chart. Is this a joke? A misdirection? Or is Miami actually shifting away from the traditional 3-4? Chop Robinson, Zach Sealer, Benito Jones, and Bradley Chubb starting across the line? That's a true four-man front. Then you've got linebackers like Dorian Williams, Tyler Dodson, and Jerome Baker missing or lower than expected, and instead it's guys like Brooks and Willie Gay Jr. moving up. This is not what we were shown last year. Is this McDaniel cooking up something new? Or just more Greer confusion? The secondary has its own drama. Storm Duck and Kendall Sheffield starting at cornerback? Really? That's either bold or reckless. Jack Jones, Ethan Bonner, and Cam Smith are all trailing behind, which feels off. Then you look at nickel corner. Mike Hilton takes the starting spot, and that one actually makes sense. Hilton's a proven vet and a solid pickup, even if underwhelming. But Isaiah Johnson and Robinson being that deep in the rotation, it just raises questions. The safety duo of Minkah Fitzpatrick and Ashton Davis is solid, but you can't ignore the youth movement behind them. Elijah Campbell, Efija Melifonwu, and then the intriguing Patrick McMorris and Dante Trader. Trader, who was drafted as a corner, appears to be shifting to safety. That's a storyline to keep an eye on, position flexibility or indecision. And then there's special teams, an afterthought for many, but not for us. Jason Sanders remains the kicker. Punter? It's either Jake Bailey or Ryan Stonehouse. Literally says or. No starter named. The coaching staff still hasn't made a decision, and we're days away from game action. That's alarming. Malik Washington is listed as the top returner for both punts and kicks, with Dwayne Eskridge backing him up. Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are emergency options, because let's be honest, if we're sending Waddle back to return kicks, something's gone seriously wrong. And if all that wasn't enough, let's circle back to the salary cap situation. Right now, the Dolphins have $11.79 million in cap space. Not great, but manageable. The problem? Next year they're projected to be $27 million in the red. But like I said earlier, cut Tyreek and you're back in the green. Trade Tua and you open up $39 million. It's a chessboard, and right now Greer's the one moving the pieces, whether we like it or not. And frankly, most of us don't. Alright, so let's keep peeling back the layers because this Miami Dolphins depth chart isn't just unusual, it's downright controversial when you look at what it could mean heading into this crucial stretch. And I know many of you are probably still stuck on that 4-3 defensive front, just like I am, because it's not what we were told to expect. For years, the Dolphins were committed to a 3-4, and yet now we're seeing Chop Robinson and Bradley Chubb lined up as true defensive ends instead of outside linebackers. And when you add Seiler and Benito Jones in the middle, it starts to feel like this is more than just a preseason misdirection. If that's the case, then you have to ask, who's driving this change? Is it McDaniel getting creative? Or maybe new influence from defensive staff trying to shake things up after last year's disappointing playoff exit? And what does it mean for players like Jaylon Phillips, who's listed at OLB but could thrive in a hybrid role? You don't just flip a defensive scheme overnight without ripple effects across your entire roster. If this sticks, we're going to see some players struggle to find their fit, and others finally break out. But let's not sugarcoat this. The idea that Storm Duck and Kendall Sheffield are leading the CB group is deeply concerning. With names like Jack Jones, Cam Smith, and even Ethan Bonner on the roster, how is it that two lesser-knowns are holding the top spots? Is this a merit-based shakeup or another example of Greer's questionable player evaluations muddying the waters? Remember, Cam Smith was once seen as a potential starter, but here he is, buried on the depth chart. That tells you something about either his development or the dysfunction within the front office. And then there's the offensive side. If you're thinking the defense is the only area with red flags, think again. While Tyreek and Waddle are clearly locked in as WR1 and WR2, the depth behind them is far from settled. Malik Washington has been electric in camp, but is he ready for real game reps? Dwayne Eskridge has flashed, but can he stay consistent? And what about Darren Waller at TE1? That's another huge question mark. The guy hasn't suited up in teal and orange yet, and we already have him leading the tight end group. It almost feels like this was a move made on hope rather than proven performance. Behind him, the Dolphins still have Julian Hill, solid but limited, and Farrah Brown, who's more of a blocker than a playmaker. It's a patchwork room, and in a season where Tua's protection and short game targets are going to be critical, this just doesn't cut it. Speaking of Tua, he's the elephant in every room. Still listed as the starter, no surprise there. But the rumors are bubbling. If this season goes off the rails, if injuries hit again, or if the team crashes and burns, don't be shocked if the front office pulls the plug. We already broke down the numbers. Trade Tua? That's $39 million in cap space freed up. And when you look at next year's potential financial mess, $27 million in the red, those numbers start talking louder than anything else. The front office has set this up so that one or two big moves can change everything. That's either genius planning or insurance for failure. Either way, it tells us one thing. This regime knows it's on thin ice. Even at punter, yes, punter, we've got confusion. Jake Bailey or Ryan Stonehouse, no one's been named starter. No one seized the job. It might seem minor, but it's emblematic of a bigger issue, a lack of clear direction. This team is heading into its first preseason game without key roles defined, and fans are supposed to just trust that it'll all come together. Look, fans deserve honesty. We've stuck with this franchise through decades of letdowns, rebuilds, and false starts. We've seen Greer survive season after season of questionable drafting, middling returns, and personnel misfires. Yet here we are again, on the edge of something potentially great, but surrounded by red flags. The Dolphins have one of the most explosive WR duos in the league, a dynamic QB when healthy, and defensive talent